You're listening to Remotely We Are One, a podcast to help inspire others to take their lives back from the office commute. I'm Rick, a passionate beer rep who loves the industry but hates the commute.
And I'm Kaleem, a remote work advocate and consultant. We're going to speak with some of the top professionals who have managed to avoid the commute as they share stories from the most inspiring to the most comical, all while working remotely.
Man, this sounds exciting. Let's clock in.
The question I asked in the chat, please tell me that you have video of yourself ice skating.
Ice skating?
Yeah, does this exist? Does the video of Chris Ronzio, and am I saying that right, the last part? Ronzio?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I've never been an ice skater. We filmed all the ice skaters. My wife was a figure skater. So there's tons of video of my wife skating. If there's any video of me, it's sliding around on the ice with my sneakers on, setting up cameras.
That's great. Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, so we've obviously done a little bit of homework and we've got some show notes going. And there's a funny story behind I'm not an ice skater at all, but I'm a former hockey player. And anytime I hear figure skating, obviously I think of Nancy Kerrigan. And I have a friend who used to work for Continental Airlines.
Who's Nancy Kerrigan? Who's Nancy Kerrigan again?
She's a famous Olympic figure skater that got hurt when Tanya Harding hit her ankle.
That's right.
Remember that?
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I got to Nancy Kerrigan used to be an announcer as well, and so a lot of the events that I did, she would come on and be an announcer. So she's awesome behind the scenes too.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that I'm not here to tarnish anything about Nancy Kerrigan. I think on this day of this story, she was having a bad day. And
you have a Nancy Kerrigan story?
Yeah. So check this out. A good friend of mine was the ticket agent for Continental Airlines up north, and Nancy Kerrigan was a passenger. And everybody was pissed off, as they are in airports. And there was some kind of delay with her flight. Something happened, and she was given some attitude. You know, there was kind of like the celebrity aura around her. And she had some choice words for my friend, and he dropped everything he was doing, and he looked right at her, and he said, "You're on thin ice, Nancy Kerrigan." And everyone in the airport seemed to turn around and go, "Very well, very good, very well done."
You're skating
awesome. He'd been waiting his whole life to say that line.
Yes, he absolutely was, and he was not going to pass up that opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm such an old dude because there's something about dad jokes that kill me now.
Oh, that's a total dad joke. Welcome back, everybody, to Remotely We Are One. I am Rick Haney, joined by Kaleem Clarkson. Hey, man.
Hey there, sir. How you doing, man? Looking good.
Oh, well, thank you. You as well. Loving the beard, dude. It's getting about time to shave that off, though, don't you think?
No,
what is it, like almost 80 or 85 where you are now?
No, it's still chilly down here in Hot Atlanta. By the way, don't call it Hot Atlanta if you're from here. No one calls it Hot Atlanta if you live here, by the way.
Nobody does. I'm excited for today's episode, man. This guest that we have today is a pro in every sense of the word. Walk us through what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I'm shocked we got him. I mean, when he said yes, I was like, what? I think, is this our first CEO? I think it might be.
Yeah, I believe it is.
Yeah. So our guest today, he's the host of two podcasts, The Fastest Growing Companies and Organized Chaos.
Mm-hmm.
All right. He's also the author of a best-selling book. Man, everybody has a damn book, man. Should we
I gotta
write
jump
a book,
on the
Rick?
bandwagon here. Yeah, we should. Absolutely. We should do a podcast about writing a book.
There's actually a podcast. So he's the author of a best-selling book called The Business Playbook. All right. He's been a contributor to Inc. magazine. That's a big deal.
That's big time.
Yeah,
that's big time, brother.
Big time. He's been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur, and a whole bunch of other magazines that we just can't even list them all. So there's that. Let's see what else about him. Oh. This is some good stuff here. This is where the real meat of this interview is going to take place here. So, for our listeners, our guest today, he has a cast on his thumb. And what he told us is that for some reason, he doesn't know why, but he faints when it comes to all medical stuff. Like he faints when it comes to all medical stuff. Which is,
in his defense, I think is fairly common. It happens to a lot of people.
yeah,
It does not discriminate.
that's true. That's true. But here's the second kicker to something you may not know about our guest. He's more of an NSYNC fan versus Backstreet Boys fan.
Oh, that's even more shocking, to be truthful. I personally don't know how you could make that choice. It's so close for me.
I mean, which one was JT? Which one was JT in? Is he NSYNC?
No, I think he was back. He was in sync. Okay. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Our guest is nodding yes. Okay. And last but not least, he is the founder and CEO of Trainual. And Trainual is a dope platform. It helps small businesses onboard, train, and scale their teams. Listeners, viewers, everyone around the world, please give a warm welcome to Chris Ronzio.
Welcome aboard, Chris.
Yeah!
Man, I could just listen to you go back and forth with each other for the whole episode. I don't need to talk. I can just listen to you guys. But that intro, you don't even let me like defend myself. I feel like I need to step in and talk about fainting and JT before we get into the meat.
Of course. Why don't you tell him? Yeah, please tell him very quickly, like what happened with the doctor too, because everybody might not know what happened. So why don't we start with that, the fainting story?
Yeah, so I was showing the guys here. I've got just a wrap around my thumb. I had a bigger cast on it up until last night. Even taking off the cast and looking at the scar and the stitches just made me want to like pass out because I am not good with medical stuff. So when I first went to the doctor's office, the doctor, who hilariously, the hand doctor, his name is Dr. Toe, which I thought was great. He said, I could do this as an outpatient thing. We could like just slice it open, local anesthesia, inject it, you're in, you're out. And as he's describing the procedure, I'm just like, the blood is flowing out of my head. I'm turning white. Oh. I said, I need to put my head down. And so as I'm like trying to recover from that tunnel noise, the faint noise, he's like, you know what? I think we're going to put you under for this procedure. And I feel like that's what happens every time there's a medical thing suggested to me. So maybe that one's more common, but you also asked me about like 90s. I don't know how we got into the Backstreet Boys, but as I'm listening to you explain this, I remember the Backstreet Boys have a song, I Want It That Way. And that kind of relates to, standard operating procedures. So I don't know if I want to change my answer. Do you want to keep your team in sync, or do you want to control I want it that way? I think it could go either way, but no disputing. I think Justin Timberlake is the biggest hit out of either of those groups. So gotta go with NSYNC.
Well done.
Well done. Kaleem, I think this is the first guest we've ever had who's been more on the ball than we have. I'm just saying.
I mean, he's a professional. You can tell I'm so nervous. I'm sweating through three shirts I have on.
We are way out of our league.
Well, thanks, man.
But anyway, thank you so much for being on the show today, Chris. It's a real honor to have you. To start to kick things off, we all obviously have a bunch of questions, but the first I have, of course, is what was the spark that led you toward creating Trainual? What are some of the things that paved the way for you?
Yeah, so Trainual, a lot of people get into business for some opportunistic reason. They think like, I can make money doing this, and that's why they end up doing it. For me, Trainual was like 20 years of having different businesses that led to the idea of Trainual. So my first company I was 14 years old. It was a video production company shooting live sporting events. And so for me, this was just like learning about business. I would film events at my high school with my friend, and then it became the state championships, and then it became all through New England and where I grew up in Massachusetts, then up and down the East Coast. I went to college, kept running the business, started hiring all my roommates, started driving into the city and recruiting people from other colleges. And by the time I graduated, we're doing events all across the US. And to do those events, we had to find crews in every city and then train those crews on how to show up and act and look and feel like they were part of our brand, how to wear the t-shirts and the lanyards, how to unpack the gear and make the customer happy. And so without knowing it, I spent, over a decade focused on systems and processes and brand and standard operating procedures and culture and how to do that all online and remotely, training people how to look and feel like our company. And so I didn't know it would lead to a SaaS platform, but when I sold my video business, the next thing I did was start consulting for other small companies and helping them package together how they do what they do. So we'd map out their workflows, their roles and responsibilities, their values and mission, and say, if you had to teach someone all about your company, how would you do it? You'd put it into this playbook to onboard and train your new people. That's where the idea for Trainual came from, but I had been doing it for 15 or 20 years before it became a SaaS platform. So Trainual is really just a natural extension, I think, of what I was learning to do my whole career.
Yeah, it sounds like it's just an accumulation of everything that you had done up until that point, and now here you are.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. I didn't know much about software, but in the years leading up to Trainual, I was fortunate to have some consulting projects where I saw other things being developed and learned about software. And so it's just like constantly learning and being in the, having the right mix of resources and the right people and the right motivation to go out and make it happen.
Yeah. So obviously, 2020 pandemic hits, the whole world, everything changes, right? You're obviously busy as a beaver trying to, grow this company. And I bring this up because I read in the article that you wrote for Inc. magazine. How did you decide to transition rather to a remote hybrid company?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting. Like with my video company, when I first moved away from my home in Massachusetts and I moved out west to Arizona, where I am now, I was working remotely. This was 2009. And so 2009, 10, 11, 12, I'm running this video company, just working remotely from my house, from my apartment, then my house. And I got to learn great habits and what it was like to work remotely. But we had people all across the country. We had an office in California. We had an office in Ohio. We had an office in Massachusetts. And I didn't work in any of the offices. It was kind of a weird setup. And so then fast forward in building the consulting firm and building Trainual at the beginning, it was like the first time I ever had people in an office. And so I was really excited about that, like getting everybody into the office and having that kind of startup community where everybody's just like can roll their chairs over to each other. When the pandemic hit, it was like, okay, reset back to 2009. Like, I know how to do this. This isn't that hard. We've got all the tools in place to be able to do this. And so we pretty quickly just went into a fully remote state where no one was coming into the office, first because of health concerns, and then because we just didn't renew our lease. We went fully remote for the summer into the fall of 2020. And we were like, let's just play this out. Let's see how it goes. We started hiring people in other states around the US and realized we can find great talent anywhere and they can work from home. And so we went all in on being a remote first or hybrid first kind of company. Then when we finally reintroduced the office, it was entirely different than what the office was like pre-pandemic. Nice, so we can talk more about that.
Yeah. So before I continue with these questions, man, I'm not hearing any Ka and Pak in your talking. You know what I mean? Like, are you really from Massachusetts, dude? I mean, is that Arizona just wiped out all of the accents and all the you haven't cursed? You haven't said a fucking F-bomb once, guy. I mean, like, what's up? I mean, we're both from Maine. That's why we know. We're both from Maine.
I must be a fraud, right? So I grew up between Massachusetts, Chicago, and North Carolina. I lived in all three of those places. And my mom was from New Jersey. My dad was from Rhode Island. And so I had a lot of different accents that were kind of competing with each other. And so, I'd say like, y'all are wicked awesome.
Y'all wicked awesome. Yes, I do.
It's like, like this hybrid. And so I took the approach of just wanting to have the clean slate. I remember hearing at one point that like TV broadcasters have this like neutral accent kind of thing.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I wanted to be on I wanted to be a sportscaster on TV. Sense, and so I just thought like, I'm not going to skew too hard in any direction here.
Yeah. Well done. It is neutral, and Arizona is a great place to have it. I mean, it's a neutral accent spot, so it is neutral. Awesome.
Yeah. It's not like you can walk around saying, oh man, that's a wicked pisser. That's wicked. That's a wicked pisser.
Man, we're in the South right now. I got to go outside, Rick. Stop it. Stop it.
All
Yeah.
right.
All right.
You know what's funny though is my
So,
in-laws have a really strong Boston accent, and our kids when they were born were spending a ton of time with the in-laws. So my kids had like a Boston accent as toddlers, learning to
Oh,
talk, and that
yeah.
was pretty funny.
that's great. That's great. We'll be right back after these words.
2020 was no joke. It changed the game for everyone. Workplace flexibility is no longer a perk, but an expectation. In fact, a recent study showed that a flexible schedule is more important than salary. Yeah, you heard that right. Employees want choices over cash. If you're a startup or a small business that doesn't have a remote work strategy, stop what you're doing right now and complete our free tree assessment at blendmeinc.com. Since 2013, BlendMe Inc. has been helping small businesses improve the remote employee experience. Let's stay local, but compete global. Visit us at blendmeinc.com. That's blendmeinc.com. Ever wonder how certain ads catch your attention or get stuck in your head? It's because the person voicing it knows how to tell the story. Now, maybe they're telling you to stumble over to Sullivan's St. Patrick's Day for green beers, Irish car bombs, and corned beef all freaking day. Or maybe, don't miss the deal of a lifetime this President's Day at Callahan Ford. Savings like these should be unconstitutional. Or maybe, come wash away your troubles here at Cooter's Car Wash. We ain't no soap opera, but you'll be singing high praises. Hoo-wee! Cooters! Or, here at Brooks Brothers Mortuary, we put the fun in funeral. Everyone is just dying to join us. All right, well, that's a bit much, but for you, I'll do it. I'm Rick Haney, and if you're a business owner looking for a creative voice in your marketing, look no further. I'll tell your story the way you want it told. Follow along at Remotely We Are One, or visit my website at rickhaney.me for more information.
And now back to the show. So you talked about how you started Trainual. Obviously, Trainual is great for any type of company, ladies and gentlemen, and others. It's a great product for any company, co-located. It doesn't matter. But obviously, we're here to talk hybrid remote settings. So how do you feel Trainual as a product? And, I'm going to kind of cobble two questions so you can just keep going. How do you feel Trainual as a product is for remote companies? And then also, do you feel like has the pandemic kind of impacted or affected your business model over the past 2 years?
Yeah, so for remote companies, it's necessary. For companies where you're all under the same roof, you can walk in and you cannot be that prepared, and you can kind of learn what to do through osmosis of just like watching other people, following them around, shadowing them. But when you're remote, there's an expectation that you're going to hit the ground running, that you know what to do, that you're set up for success, that you know how to use the tools. And if you can't lean over and just ask the person next to you questions, you need to be able to access the answers to those questions. And so for us, when we launched the company in 2018, we were already targeting remote companies that had offices around the world. We have users in 183 countries, and so people use Trainual all over the world, and we knew that we were already targeting that. But when everyone went remote, it all of a sudden became a necessity of like, wow, our people need to know what we're expecting of them. They need some more asynchronous kind of resources that they can go through. They need a place where they can keep track of their own best practices or delegate work to others. And so it became more necessary in a remote environment. And now as people are hiring all over the world, when you join a business and your first day at that company is walking through their doors and getting a tour of the office and meeting the people and going out to lunch, you get such a different experience than when your first day is logging into a Zoom call or something and then getting assigned some tasks in the project management system. And so Trainual kind of bridges that gap. It helps businesses to capture everything about their culture, their history, values, videos of their people, bios, their handbook, their best practices, so that somebody new joining your business can really start to go through that stuff and have a more similar onboarding experience. So I would say it's just become more of a need than it's ever been. In terms of how our business model changed, it's pretty much the same, but what did change, we were always a subscription business. You pay monthly for access to the tool. When the pandemic first started, March of 2020, everyone goes remote. There's this big scare in the public markets, and no one's kind of sure what's going to happen. And so what we did is immediately pump the brakes on our ad spend to acquire new customers. And instead we shifted to creating content for how to work remotely and how to connect with your teammates remotely. We set up a website called remoteworkresources.com. And we started just pumping out blog posts and templates and guides and tool stacks and things that people could use to work remotely. We put all of our energy into trying to help people. And so I would say our business model didn't necessarily change, but our marketing strategy changed a lot when the pandemic first happened.
Of course, that makes perfect sense. Do you think remote work is here to stay?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. You hear that, everybody? Did you hear that? He didn't even hesitate. There was just, he didn't faint. He didn't faint on this one.
Yeah.
He went straight, yes.
Once you've experienced the flexibility that comes with remote work and being able to take your kids to school and eat lunch with your family and take your dog for a walk and log back on and get your work done and have a Zoom meeting and catch up on stuff in your project management system, it's like everyone's an entrepreneur. Like before, when it wasn't remote work,
I like that.
You were kind of, at the whim of the company to say, like, here's where you sit, here's the work you do, here's the hours that you come in for. You didn't have that control. And the reason a lot of people go and start their own businesses is because they want the flexibility, they want the control. And what remote work did is it gave everyone instantly, in a week's time, control over their schedule, because there were no policies to say what you can and can't do. So people just fell into kind of a entrepreneurship state. And I don't think you can go back from that. And so then when you layer technology on it and say, okay, well, you can be in any city with an internet connection and get your work done and meet with a teammate. And when you layer on the advances with even VR and the metaverse, and I don't know if you guys get into that sort of stuff, it's like, this is only going to get more easy. It's only going to get,
it's not going to get harder.
Like the connectedness and the experiences and the fidelity of everything is just going to keep improving. And as it keeps improving, like, why would you go back to the old way?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So let me kind of bounce off that. We were reading one of your articles and you were talking about before you were married to your partner, and she had moved 1,800 miles away for school. And I did the same thing, long distance marriage,
Man, you went deep.
dating. Yeah, we did. So I saw that, and you were able to maintain that relationship from a distance.
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges of working remotely, one of the things that I talk a lot about for organizations, is to ensure that you're providing spaces and providing opportunities for people to maintain these connections. So can you talk about, number one, what you kind of did way back in the day to kind of keep that long distance connection going, right? And then can you talk about where do you see the new office fit in making those connections, and how you were able to kind of transform the purpose of the office at Trainual?
I love this question. All right. Yeah. My wife went to school in Florida and I was in Massachusetts. And so when we were that far away, if anybody's ever had a remote long distance relationship, then you've got to keep that going. You got to keep that spark alive with emails and phone calls. And at the time for us, we were writing each other letters, so like we would write like a long form letter. I'd send it to her. She'd read it. She'd write me back one. I couldn't wait, at the mailbox to get the handwritten note and read about it. We had the phones that are plugged in with the corded, like, headsets, and you're like, spinning it around your feet and standing in the, the pantry and having a conversation. And I had to invest in that relationship a lot. I was reaching out to her college roommate and asking that she would like pay for lunch or something and say it was from me. I would send down a Valentine's Day present or flowers or something like that. I would book a surprise trip to go visit her, or she would plan to come up and visit during a break. So what it was is it's constant communication so that you're in the loop, you know what's going on day to day, week to week. And there's no sense of having to like get back caught up because you're always caught up. I think that's really important, the connectedness. And then there's those little moments of reuniting and spending quality time together. And I think that those moments help you go another month or two without seeing each other or whatever it is. You know, and so we really invested in those. And so now fast forward to a largely remote hybrid kind of workplace. The difference between our office before and our office now is that offices used to be a place people had to go to work. And now offices are a place that, you know, people should want to go occasionally to work. And it's optional. No one has to go to an office. We have an office in Arizona where about, 40-50% of our employees are. And if we required all the local people to come into the office, how is that fair? Because no one that lives out of state has to come in. So we don't require anyone to come in, but it puts the burden on us to just make the office an incredible place to collaborate, to get things done. It's always fully stocked with snacks. There's cool breakout areas to hang out. And so when people do fly in or get together, it's those little moments that, kind of sustain the relationship. Like when I would see my wife my girlfriend at the time, every couple months. You spend the money to get together, to build a relationship, and then you can go back to working remotely for a few months to sustain the in-person relationship you built. So I think it's just making a really intentional investment, making the office a place people want to go.
Okay, that's our sign for taking a drink, everybody. You heard it. He said intentional. Drink whatever you need to drink, coffee, water, another beverage, and cheers. Intentional is the word I hear, Chris. We say it in every podcast. In every podcast. And the other thing that I love about that story, so jokes aside, when you hear that story, he was very intentional in every moment. And he was intentional in making those spaces. And we say this word in every podcast because you have to be to do this remote work thing. And the one thing I kind of wanted to just comment on is, do you all remember when you didn't see your significant other or friends for a long time? You maximize the time that you have together. Like that little bit of time, you try to go on 1 million trips. You try to do 1 million things. You try to hug as many times as possible. So make the most out of the time that you are together. It doesn't have to be about work, right? It doesn't have to be about work. So anyway, thank you. Great story.
Yeah. Awesome. So now, Chris, we have arrived at the point of I can see Kaleem kind of foaming at the mouth here. You've been around, you've done some really cool things, and no doubt you've seen some shit, no doubt. Can you tell us about a comical or inspiring or any type of thing that sticks out in your mind, a memory that you might have of working remotely for our listeners?
So comical. So we did this campaign with Montell Jordan, who sang "This Is How We Do It."
He also has a talk show, right? He also has he had a talk show, the Montreal show. He had a talk show.
No, different guy. But that's
Montell
Williams, brother.
Montell Williams, yeah. So not Montell Williams.
One
Montell
moment,
Jordan.
One moment. I need to send out a message to the Black community. My Black card is still in my pocket. Please, you're not going to take that card away from me. Please don't take that card away from me.
I'm an Irish guy from New England, and you just became whiter than I am.
It's still Montell. It's the same name though. Like I had a brain fart. My fault. Sorry, Chris.
It's okay.
Sorry.
So Montell Jordan, who sang "This Is How We Do It."
Of course, I know the song. This is how we do it.
Got it.
Wow.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay.
So, and then Damon John from Shark Tank. So we had this campaign with the two of them where we were shooting a video in Brooklyn, New York. So we're in this studio and I'm trying to get some work done. And I had a really important interview with like this award thing that I was up for. And so this whole judging panel's there. And so I'm working remotely on my laptop outside, and I'm trying to stay away from the production because they're literally shooting a music video. So there's like lights and music and all this. So I'm down the hallway, like just trying to hide. And so right next to where I am doing this interview, a door swings open and people start walking in with like 2x4s and they start sawing wood in the room right there. So I'm like, I'm so sorry, excuse me, hold on. I mute myself. I run to the other end of the hallway and I'm like, okay, I'm back, here we go. So I start talking again. Behind me, a freight elevator door opens and people come in like pushing like these huge barrels of industrial equipment. And so I'm like, okay, I'm so sorry. One more second. I go into the hallway or into the stairwell, and I'm like, okay, I think it's quiet in here. Someone comes in with like a boom box, like walking up the stairs with playing music from their lunch break with some friends. I'm like, I'm so sorry again. And so it was a story that you'd think it was just set up, like staged, people to ruin my meetings. But, you know, even when we were getting started with this, you know, when you've got audio issues, it's kind of hard to do the remote work thing. You got to really have the good infrastructure. And so that was one funny thing that came to mind. Another funny thing was just like early on at the company, when we all started doing these remote meetings, you know how you can switch out your background with a video or something? So instead of a photo behind us, what we would do is like move away and record a video of like, you know, like sneaking up on your desk. And then you set that video as your background. And so like during a meeting, you're just kind of having a conversation and a clone of you is walking around in the background, like picking stuff up. And
I like these ideas. I'm definitely stealing that one. That's well done.
Yes,
well done.
So we all started doing that with like the most random scenarios of like, you know, dressed in costumes and walking around in the back. And you wouldn't expect it because someone would have, you know, their video that is exactly their normal background, and then 10 minutes into it you see like, you know, a dinosaur walking across the you know, vacuuming or something. So there's some fun things you can do with remote work. I would say more on the inspirational side, like just having my kids at home. My older son, he's 7. He would come in and see my microphone and like what I'm doing here, and he wanted to start a podcast or a YouTube show. And so I started working with him to put together like a little podcast. His name's Trip, and so he called the show Triple Double, and it's like NBA highlights that he wants to talk about.
That's super
great name.
That's super cool.
That was cool.
It is a good name.
And yeah, I think it's been fun to connect with other people's families. You know, you see their kids or their, you know, significant other, their partner walking around in the background. And we used to be shielding those kind of things. And I think now we embrace them. You know, now you want to be like, oh, is that Lucy? Like, bring her over. You know, like I wanna say hi. So that's been a fun change.
That's
super
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the background issue. I just noticed that I'm a white guy wearing a blue shirt with a blue background, and I'm like, who the hell? Listeners, anybody viewing this on YouTube is going to be like, what are they doing, interviewing Smurfs or something on this show? Couldn't be more white if I tried.
You do kind of look like a Smurf. I'm not going to say, I wasn't going to say that again, but you know.
You guys have nice matching backgrounds. I felt like I needed to put a blue background up.
Well, I mean, we're in the same room, of course.
We need to break up the monotony.
Okay, all right.
Where can our viewers and listeners find you?
Yeah, thank you so much. So you can check out my personal website, chrisronzio.com, Trainual's website, trainual.com, or I hang out most on Instagram and LinkedIn. So just Chris Ronzio in both places, and I'd love to connect with you. So thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Come back
Much
anytime.
Appreciated, sir. Yes, much appreciated. Thank you.
All right, guys.
You've been listening to the Remotely We Are One podcast. Visit us at remotely1.com/podcast for upcoming episodes. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and download our episodes on your favorite podcast app.
Hey, don't forget to clock out.